Hi.
Hello, everyone. We have started. My name is Karen Nazish. So today we're talking about diversity and in the media and walking the talk. And in that, I just want to also remember that diversity has taken a long time to reach, leadership in the media. And today we have, leaders, women of color who are leading prominent media organizations. But that there has been a journey that has brought us here. I wanted to read a little bit, a little paragraph just to celebrate and remember. It's from a compilation of book on Audre Lorde. Many of you must have read her work. Okay, so I'm just going to read something Roxanne Gay wrote about her. She says that she recognized the importance of speaking up because silence would not protect her or anyone. She recognized that there would never be perfect time to speak up. Because while we wait in silence for the final luxury of fearlessness, the weight of that silence will choke us. The reason I'm reading this is also because it often takes a long journey for women to be able to get there, and it certainly has. And I want to start with that, with each of our panelists today to talk a little bit about their journey. We are in 2022, and it's been both of you have had decades-long career before arriving where you are. So I would like to start the conversation a little bit about what your journey has been like. Maybe Vanessa, would you like to start talking about a little bit about when it wasn't diverse to where you are now?
Sure. So for most of my career in publishing and magazine publishing first, I experienced a lot of for lack of a better word, being being the only person of color that was in a particular department or in an entire editorial branch, and that was of course disappointing because we were always looking for. I think all of us are always looking for people that we can see you know, in higher positions that we can look toward and say, okay, well, if that person could do it, so can I. And so if you don't see that and you don't see that demonstrated, it makes you wonder, is it even possible? And so, fortunately, I did have a number of mentors and sponsors who were not of color, but who saw my potential and then would actually, you know, give me opportunities to shine, give me opportunities to grow, invested time in me, gave me opportunities to be presented when I wasn't, when I wasn't in the room, they could represent for me. And I think that that makes a huge difference. Now, go fast forward to present day, I think that the thing that we have to do is really um, concentrate on how do we increase the pipeline. How do we build that, and how do we use the platform that we have to to get more people of color in, experienced, build that foundation, and then help push them forward.
Excellent. Lindsay, you started at a very young age, and you started as an intern
Yeah.
at Teen Vogue, and from there you've had quite a career in a very short amount of time to, from one place to another, and you've grown really fast, and now you are here at the Cut. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like? You starting off at Teen Vogue and how things changed for you.
I think a lot of my experience was, similar to how Vanessa was saying, I felt like there wasn't somebody that I could look to say they've done this, so I know that I can. It was very, I was obsessed with this TV show called The Hills, if anybody ever watched it. And I just spent a lot of time thinking like, I don't even know if this is a real job. I don't know if this is possible for me, but this is something that I really want to go after. I had amazing professors at the school that I went to in the Midwest, and one of them said, I just think you should apply and just try to see if it's possible. And I didn't have any formal fashion experience. I didn't go to a fashion school, but I just knew that I would outwork anyone. And I think that having that hustle has always, proved to be useful and resourceful in that sense. But a lot of it, for me, has felt like such a climb. Which can be quite exhausting because I think that I knew that I really wanted to work in magazines, and I knew that I had something to say, and I knew that I had something to offer that was different than other people. But especially, with fashion people, it's a little different, and there are other things that play into it. But I always felt like I was behind, and so I always felt like, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough connections, I don't have enough resources, and so I ended up, working at a lot of places multiple times to kind of come back and try to do it all over again. So I did intern at Teen Vogue, and then I worked at Teen Vogue out of college, and then I came back later on as editor-in-chief, and similarly in my current job at New York Magazine at The Cut, I worked at New York Magazine years ago as an editor, and now came back as editor-in-chief of The Cut. So.
Excellent. I want to move on to newsroom culture and how diversity is affecting leadership. Diverse leadership is affecting newsrooms and all that. But before that, I just want to stay here for a little bit and talk a little bit about challenges you both have seen in your careers, and how things are different now that we are seeing more diversity, more inclusivity in newsrooms, in your own newsrooms as well. If you can talk a little bit about how things were different, like any particular one or two examples of challenges that you saw before that don't exist. And the reason I ask this question, just to clarify, is that diversity does change things. And so, what are the things that you think diversity is changing or can change that you saw in your career?
Well, I think that in the beginning, what was difficult, or as I was rising, what was difficult for me to be able to explain to other people on the executive level, that they should give opportunities to women of color in particular, that these people have the skill set to actually do the work and produce and to be great in it. There seemed to be an assumption that there wasn't enough experience, there wasn't enough background, and maybe there wasn't enough work ethic. I don't know what that thing was, but I had a lot of difficulty trying to push through talent, and that can be extremely frustrating when you know that there are other people who are, of the mainstream culture, who may not even have the skills that, a person of color has, and they're still advanced. And so it's like, how do you mentor that person to get them to a place where they can actually succeed and not want to leave, which is the frustration. If if they hit a ceiling, then they just want to give up. And so there have been many times when I've had young people come from a more mainstream publication, come to when I used to work at Essence Magazine, and say to me that they felt blocked, they felt like they weren't getting, that consideration. And so they came to Essence to they had to recharge and revitalize themselves and kind of rebuild that confidence. And that's unfortunate. Of course, it was wonderful to be able to mentor and help these young women grow. But at the same time, it shouldn't be a case where you go into an environment and you feel like there's no support and there's no resources and there's no one who really is there to help you along to make that progress in an organization. It shouldn't be that way.
Mm-hmm. Lindsay?
I think there have been a lot of changes that you and I have privately talked about. But honestly, one of my, somewhat controversial, but one of my favorite changes has been that I think people are a lot more upfront when I can tell that they don't actually care about diversity, which is helpful for me because I think a lot of times when I used to go into jobs, I felt like, am I the token here? You know, I want to work hard. I want to do all these things. Are they actually going to listen to my ideas? And I feel like I feel like people are a lot more honest about, yeah, like we're not ready to make a holistic change. We're not actually ready to talk about the infrastructure of how this company has been really exclusive or not inclusive enough to people of color and marginalized communities. And so I think that's actually been a huge help for myself and a lot of my peers, because then I would rather just know up front that you're not actually, you know, interested in implementing all of the change or ideas, instead of kind of taking a job or going into a role and thinking, oh yeah, I'm finally going to get my opportunity to do all the things that I want to do, and it's not that.
Mm-hmm. And just one thing I want to say about mentorship to touch upon the point you mentioned is that if women or diverse journalists from diverse backgrounds were in the past, mentorship looked different because some people who would mentor them who were not representative of them, that mentorship, which existed a little bit, looked different than it looks now, because now you have more diverse leaders, and that diversity is also changing, you know, the way we are able to, you know, work with younger journalists who are entering the industry. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, policies and, you know, how you are changing, you know, how your newsroom looks like and how you are encouraging diversity. So anything, you know, Vanessa, if you can talk about at the root, what does your leadership look like in terms of including diverse journalists and voices?
Well, you know, I mean, the route is geared towards the Black community specifically. We cover, you know, everything from breaking news to race matters to social justice to entertainment. We run the gamut. And so we have a very diverse team of men, young men and women that I think have a great understanding of what the mission is of the brand, and how to, and they bring a lot of that passion to the work that they do. On the larger scale of Geo Media, I think that, you know, the company has, from my experience, had some great recruiters, and this is a key piece. The recruiters have to understand the value of diversity. And they have to take it upon themselves to look beyond just kind of like who pops up on the Indeed.com, you know, list. You know, you may have to fan out and span far and wide. And I think that if you have a team that is dedicated to that, and I feel that we do, that makes it a lot easier to enable people to get, you know, to be seen, you know, to get that opportunity.
And it translates into, you know, how your audience receives your work as well. Lindsay, you run The Cut, which is fashion, culture, and in that, you know, including, you know, diverse voices, reporters, and stories. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, your leadership strategy?
I mean, I just wanted to be as inclusive as possible, and I think similar to what Vanessa was saying, I think a lot of it for me is, you know, if we ever have an open role, I'm not looking for you had to go to this school or you had to, you know, work at this place or anything like that. I totally think that for me, it is you having a voice and a point of view that I'm really interested in. So I've hired a lot of different contributors like Britton Cooper and Kimon Felix and Samita Makopadai, people that I really love and admire, and I think their writing is amazing. And I think a lot of that for me has just been that it doesn't have to look, I think, how it traditionally has, but I also think I'm not looking for a certain level of prestige or anything. I just want excellent work, and I think that can come from a lot of different places. But I also just want it to feel alive. Like I think The Cut is its best when we feel really intimate and close to our readers, and it feels like a community of people that really feel seen and heard in their life experiences. And that takes, I think, a lot of different points of view to kind of get to that. So.
Yeah, it's really about it really is about the nuances. You know, who is in place to understand that a story that you can tell a story many different ways, there may be someone on your team who, because of their background, because of their experience, that they have a better understanding of what the nuances are, and they can bring that to the table. And then that becomes a very different way of storytelling, as opposed to, a very different story than what, maybe another organization would do. And I think that that's important, especially now.
Yeah, and in that, I just also want to ask, you were on the Peabody judge, you're one of the judges. Can you talk a little bit about that? The experience, like judging the process, and then what were you thinking? How was your mindset in terms of including diversity or diverse
First
voices?
of all, I think that they did an incredible job of trying to recruitment, a diverse panel of board of judges. Men, women, people of all backgrounds, ethnicities, points of view. That set us up to be able to see the different categories of entertainment and documentaries and news stories in a very different way. People were bringing their own, perspective to these stories. And I believe that previously it wasn't as diverse. And so because of that, a different collective of stories were seen as valuable. Whereas I think now, because of the diversity, there's much broader, swath of content that is considered Peabody worthy. And I think that that's an extraordinary, for me, going through the experience for my first time this year, it was an extraordinary example of how that can happen, like how all of these disparate people can come together and still, for the good of the whole, agree on what is excellent. And that's really all that's really all you need. You need to, want to have a room full of people who are passionate and have the ability to bring that passion to the work.
And nuance, Lindsay, if I could, talk a little bit about audience response. So, covering fashion and culture. If and when you use, you're telling diverse stories of people of color, diverse backgrounds, what kind of audience response do you get? Is there anything different that you feel as a response from the public or your reader?
Cut readers are really vocal, and I love that. When I worked at Teen Vogue, I also felt like that audience was really, they would readily tell me in my DMs all the time if they liked something or didn't, and I appreciate that. I think that it's nice to see how people feel, identify, react with the work, but I also think that I take it really seriously because I'm constantly analyzing and interrogating, like, why did we give this person a story, or why did we give this person a cover, or who do we, when we say someone is good enough for this, what do we mean by that? When we say, like, this person is cool enough or chic enough, what does that actually boil down to? And I think that readers understand that now, that it doesn't have to be, okay, I care about culture, I care about fashion, or I care about the world in one box. It can all be in one, and I think that's when the cut is at its best, for sure.
Excellent. Vanessa, you run the Root, and a lot of your coverage is on communities. And I want to talk a little bit about safety for journalists who are covering these communities. I run a press freedom organization focused on gender and diverse backgrounds, journalists who are from diverse backgrounds, and oftentimes we do see that the way women get targeted. Online trolling is well-known phenomenon now. There's also a lot of times violence on the ground or approaching journalists and all that. So we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I'm wondering if you can touch upon that a little bit. The experience of your reporters when they're covering communities or demonstrations and so on.
Sure. We cover so many controversial topics, and we have a very vocal audience that's outside of the Black community that also will comment and will, send hate mail, especially to people who on our team who are op-ed writers, who have strong opinions, who are trying to express, how they really feel in a forum to say, okay, let's talk about this. Of course, the way that things are now, it can be incredibly difficult to express your opinion without a lot of backlash. And so what we try to do at GeoMedia is make sure that people are safe, that that their information is scrubbed from all of the resources where it might be, so that they're not bombarded with that kind of vitriol. But it does kind of come with the territory, and I think if you're a journalist, you understand that, especially if you're a journalist that's going after topics that are very very difficult to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. We're out of time. Thank you for everybody for joining.
Thank you.